So geeking cool.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of So Geeking Cool. I'm Frank,
I'm Kevin.
and today we have a very special guest,
I'm the Bear from the Bear and the Beard podcast.
the Bear and the Beard podcast. For any of our regular listeners who have not discovered their podcast, they are a podcast that's kind of a hybrid of locations, and I'll let the Bear kind of fill you in on that.
Yeah, so back in 2020, the crucible that was 2020, me and an internet friend of mine, Brian, Bearded Brian guy, we got together and started a podcast by doing live streams on Instagram. And now we put out a bi-weekly show. We were doing it weekly. But he lives in Nebraska, and I live here in Mississippi with you guys.
Yeah. And if you like our show, I'm pretty sure you're going to love their show. We do cover a lot of the same content, but we do it in different ways. I've had the privilege of guest starring on one of their episodes.
Our last episode, as a matter of fact, if you're dropping this when you say you are, then our last episode, which was 2 weeks ago, was our Jurassic Park episode that you and your son Solomon was on.
Right.
And we pretty much just geeked out about how cool the Jurassic Park franchise was. So.
Yeah. And I think there's been a running joke because I referred to myself as a fossil. And Kevin, my fellow fossil, is he's old enough to also remember when that movie debuted.
Yes.
So.
Yep.
I remember, what was like 8th grade, 7th grade, something, or whenever it came out, and
We were in school.
going to the theater, and it was just a mind-blowing, out-of-this-world experience. And frankly, it's not been very much the same standard since.
Yeah.
Because it was the first time you'd ever seen, dinosaurs like that on screen that looked lifelike.
Yeah, before that, we were kind of used to the claymation.
Yeah. Well, and that was probably one of my favorite parts of the episode was getting to ask Frank, who I don't view as a fossil. I do need to point that out. Frank said he was a fossil. His words, not mine. But it was really cool getting to ask you specifically what the hype was like, because we nowadays, like, hype is everywhere. It's social media. We have, the Avengers are sponsoring Gillette razor blades and like all this other stuff. So it's nowhere near comparable because back then social media didn't exist. You had to take out newspaper ads, magazines and stuff like that. You can still do that today, but it wasn't your only source like it was back then.
I remember it was one of the first movies that was hyped everywhere because it was like McDonald's had the Jurassic Park, the cups, like the special Happy Meals.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of them cups became collector items. I actually kept one for years until it finally wore out. But it was everywhere back then on TV ads because it was one of the first movies I remember that had that much hype.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, even something we take for granted today, growing up in the 80s, E.T. was like the first movie I really, truly remember in-your-face product placement. There may have been movies before that, but E.T. was like Reese's Pieces became all the rage. Everybody wanted it. Was it Pepsi and Back to the Future?
Yes.
So you had some other product placement that came along around that
Yeah,
same time
subliminal
period.
messaging was strong back in the 80s, and now it's like anyone that can come up with a couple thousand gets mentioned in the movie.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think even you and I actually had a conversation one time over the phone about smoking. How in the 1940s and 50s, everybody was smoking a cigarette, and even the first Jurassic Park.
And Brian actually brought that up in our episode too, where back then it was a lot more commonplace than it is now. But a lot of times only the villains smoked too. That was another thing. Like the hero rarely ever smoked after. Well, in the 80s action movies, those were a little different. Like, Die Hard, welcome to the party, pal. That was a little different, but.
And all your cowboy heroes.
Oh, yeah, of course. Sam Elliott, we talked about him earlier today, too.
Yeah.
So. the original Marlboro Man. That actually, Thank You for Smoking.
Yeah.
The same actor that played Two-Face in the Christian Bale movies
Mm-hmm.
played the lobbyist for tobacco, and Sam Elliott played the Marlboro Man. That was actually a really good film that explored that idea as a whole.
Right. And you know that, not to go down too deep of a rabbit hole, but two of my favorite actors of all time were avid smokers, and they both had the unfortunate diagnosis of cancer later. But Humphrey Bogart, who in every Private Eye movie that he ever played, you know, it's one after another.
Yeah.
And then John Wayne, who in every cowboy movie, he's either, you know, he's rolling a cigarette and licking it and smoking
We
it.
really need to do an episode on John Wayne. Like, I don't know if we need to do it of your show or of my show. One of the two, another joint collaboration, because I could talk for hours about, like, Rio Lobo and El Dorado and Big Jake, Chisholm.
We'll do that. We'll do a
Yes.
John Wayne episode. This episode, our main point of conversation is supposed to be Mississippi Comic Con.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
1 week out.
Yeah.
Hopefully, if you haven't bought your tickets, now is the time to do it, because you can
Yes.
actually pick them up the night before the con from 4 to 7, which is going to be a big improvement. You can go ahead and get your wristband if you got weekend passes.
Plus, you'll save a little money too, because if you get them on con day, they're always going to be a little more expensive.
Yep.
And the good news was this year is that they said even at the door, I think it's going to be 40 for the day and 60 for the weekend. So 80 if you pay for both days if you don't buy the weekend pass.
Yeah, and they also are doing something I thought was really cool. If you go on Saturday and you have such a good time that you want to stay for Sunday, they'll only charge you the difference.
Yeah.
They won't
To come back the next day.
so you won't have to buy a totally fresh ticket. You'll still get the discount of buying a weekend pass, and that's really
Yeah.
a great benefit.
Yep, that's great.
Yeah, Mississippi Comic Con, I mean, they broke the record last year, which was amazing because the year after the pandemic, we're still coming out of it last year. You know, there's still vaccines are still being talked about because, you know, it was middle of the year. And they still broke the record. I think it was like over 7,000 individual attendees.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. And if we can do that again this year, that'll just be awesome.
Yeah, and I could tell you last year, my family, I took my entire family, minus my daughter because she's got her own family now.
Yeah.
And I don't think my grandkids are quite old enough to start going to Comic Con.
I mean, define old enough. Because
Well-
I can dress my youngest one up as Grogu right now.
I will.
She won't like it, but
I will say that my granddaughter Elizabeth actually helped me with she was there the entire time I pieced together my Darth Vader costume. And when she sees Captain America on anything, she says that's Pop Pop.
yep, my kids used to do that same thing.
Yeah. So I guess she probably is old enough. She may not have the attention span that we would think she would need yet.
Yeah.
But my entire family went. We had a great time. There was a ton of really good vendors. The coolest thing I think I've ever seen in my life is they had Battle Cat and Panther,
Oh yeah.
and you could take pictures on He-Man's
Yes.
mount or on Skeletor's mount, and that had to be the coolest thing. You could
And they
get
had the props with it, too,
right?
yeah.
Yep.
And I didn't get a chance to do it. I was in my Han Solo costume, and I wanted to make my way over there, but to hold the sword of power and by the power of Grayskull, that would have been so awesome. But you guys actually had a table last year?
Yeah. So that was actually our first con. We applied. We got told by some other friends of ours. They were like, "Look, apply for a fan group table. You know, they're free, and you can just come in and tell people about your show." And I was like, "That's a little presumptuous." Like I even told my co-host, which at the time the team only consisted of me, him, my wife Mama Bear, and then our marketing guy, our other friend Matt. I told all of them, I was like, I think it's a little bit presumptuous for us to take up a table just to say, hey, I have a podcast, and they were like, yeah, I don't know about that. And I was like, but what if we did like a raffle or something, and it meant something. And marketing guy, Matt Hombrolo, he got us in touch with Children's of Mississippi, the Blair E. Batson Hospital up in Jackson. And ever since then, we've been, every event we go to, we raise money. We do a raffle, or we sell, quote unquote, stuff. But it's really, you're donating a certain amount of money and you're getting the item from us for free.
Right.
Is essentially how it goes. Because we can't sell anything. We can't make profits. We are 100% nonprofit when it comes to the charity work. And we're continuing that this year with a table. Between Comic-Con last year and our last event, which was MobaCon, where we actually met you guys, we raised roughly a guesstimation about $4,000.
That's awesome.
That's great.
So we're hoping to break that 4,000 at this con. Like if we can pull that off, that'd be really cool.
And I think that's an interesting point for us to discuss. With Hub City Heroes, we do a lot of work with the Salvation Army and with the Boys and Girls Club. So we do our charity for them, and
Right.
a lot of ours is around holiday time. You guys are doing for the Batson's Children's Hospital here in Mississippi, which is an epic
Yeah.
thing to do. I mean, that means a lot. And
It's no small feat.
right, right.
It's,
So give us a little background information on.
well, first of all, I will say, when I say it's no small feat, going out of state is difficult because everyone doesn't, like, they hear Children's of Mississippi. They don't know, like, unless they already know what that is, they don't know that that is the Blair E. Batson of the Southeast. I think the next one over is over in Atlanta. So that hospital at University there in Jackson services Arkansas, Tennessee, Louisiana, Alabama, even, the westernmost part of Georgia, unless they want to go to, I'm not 100% sure, but I think that's where the next, the Larry Batson Hospital is. I could be wrong, but I know that one's the one we service, that we donate to in Jackson, services that big of an area. So when we go to events like going to MobaCon in Alabama or stuff like that, we still get donations, and that's great, but it's a little harder of a sale because home is where it means more. Like I said, we got into it just by applying. It was pretty easy, actually. We just waited for a confirmation email to come back and say, yeah, you can, y'all can raise money for us. That'd be great, at this event. And we were like, all right, cool. And now our contact, which I have to give a shout out to, Ryan Maines. He's our contact at Children's Hospital. He told me the last time I went and we did a check presentation, he said, I love seeing y'all's name come across my computer because y'all are one of the only, like, small groups in the area, in the Jackson metro area, that's doing anything. Like, yeah, you might have some individuals in the groups that donate to the charity, and that's great. He's not talking down on anyone, but he loves seeing our name come across because we're sitting here going, yeah, so Ryan, all I need from you is some cups and some pins and permission to use your logo, and we're going to Alabama to raise money for y'all.
Right.
Or, hey, can you give me some calendars and stuff like that, and we're gonna go over here and we're gonna make this merch with your permission, and we're gonna sell it, quote unquote, and and then we come back with a check for like $300, $500. Mississippi Anime Fest back in March, $1,500 in 2 days.
Yeah.
It was amazing, and we got into it because I have 4 children, as listeners of my show know. All girls. I know. Outnumbered, but 2 of them were born there. They both had not severe complications, but like jaundice and stuff like that. So we spent a lot of time there. But my wife's little cousin had a rare cancer, and they tried their best to help her there. So we spent a lot of time there for that too. Unfortunately, they gave it their best shot, but they weren't able to save her, and she passed away a couple of years back. So the Children's Hospital holds a very special place in my heart and my wife's heart, and now through the podcast and through donators and, you know, building the community that we're building. Well, and I say we're building, like, we're really just kind of joining into these multiple communities, like working with you guys and working with, you know, Ori over at Geeky Vengeance and with Keith over at Blurtish. It's really amazing because all of them are like, this isn't our charity, but it's a charity. We're going to help you so that you don't have to do it alone, because last year we did it on our own. We put it all out there. We bought all the stuff to make the merch. We sold the merch, and we walked away with $550. I think we were in the hole, comparatively, which we don't view it that way. But this year, already, and we don't even have a full list yet. We've had some people say, "Hey, I'm going to donate this, but I don't know what it's worth," and, you know, all that stuff that we're still waiting to hear back from. We already have like over $1,000 worth of prizes right now, and that's before we go to the vendors, like you mentioned. Awesome vendors there. We go to the vendors every time we go to this event on the second day. We go that morning while everyone's setting up and say, "Hey, would you like to donate anything for a raffle?" And we do a complete raffle of just vendor items that we collect that day. And we promote the vendors that did it. We make sure we grab enough business cards so that one business card with each of the items goes to whoever won it. So it's not just us.
Right.
It's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah. It's kind of like we say for our Patreon. Like, we set up a Patreon for the show. And we you know, the promo is at the beginning of every episode, and we call it a win-win-win. If you donate to our Patreon every month, we take out the bare minimum of what we need to keep the show going. Some months that's like $100, you know, because Buzzsprout doesn't cost a lot. That's our hosting site. The website to keep it up and running, $20, and we use StreamYard to record ours. So $100 a month. You know, the rest of that, everything after that, if we ever get to a point where like we have $1,000 worth of patrons, well, we're only going to take out what we need every month to keep the show going. Everything else is going to that charity. So you're donating to charity. You're getting something for it, whether it be bonus content from us, discounts at the merch store, even VIP. Like there's a tier where you get a free something or another when you come see us at live events. That can be a buy one get one raffle ticket or a free cup. I saw you got our MomoCon cup over there. We make
Great
those
cup,
with
too.
custom decals for every event we go to, and 100% of the proceeds go to the hospital.
You mentioned the cup,
Yeah.
and I know that this year you guys have something a little more special. You did something last year, but you've changed it up. So let's let you talk about that.
So the cups, we create a custom decal for the event that we're going to be at that somehow includes our decal. We sell, quote unquote, sell those for the charity. But last year we came up with this idea to do a coloring book. We put it in with what we called our Comic-Con survival kits. It came with a cup, coloring book, a koozie, all little stuff like the kids or, you know, the parents of those kids could use to kind of get through con, you know, bag for your smaller items, you know, and all that. The coloring books were a big hit. But actually, thanks to y'all this year, over at So Geeking Cool, we're doing the coloring book again, and this is just a small version, a little promo that they gave me at Office Depot when we got them printed. But since y'all went in half with us on these, we're just going to hand these out. We're going to hand these out with a 4-pack of crayons to the first 100 kids that want one. And that's going to be cool. It has y'all's little logo on the front there. And Kaz, he's our artist. He did that. He does the comic book cover for us every year. We have the one from last year, and then this is the second one. This is issue number 2. And a lot of his artwork's in there too, so that they can color it.
Great artwork, because I looked through it. does some great work.
Yeah, I think it's cool that it's got a section for them to draw their own comic books.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because, let's be honest, Comic Con would not exist without comic
Comics.
books.
Right.
And comic books wouldn't exist without comic book artists. So I think it's really cool to give these children the opportunity to express themselves.
And then actually the Friday before con, we're going to record in advance. We're doing an episode all about, July is going to be really important for literacy for us. We're going to be recording some interviews with comic book creators, indie comic book creators. So that'll be coming out in late July. And Kaz is actually going to come sit down with us at the Original Library the Friday before con. And we're going to interview him specifically about what it's like to do artwork for big name comics.
Right.
So, because that is something he does on the side as well. Well, I say on the side, I don't know what to call. It's either his custom art is his side project or working on comic books is his side project. I'm not sure.
Right.
So,
Well, and that's, we have a local artist, Paul Parker,
Yes.
who's working on our designs. He's actually doing some cool robots. One that's going to represent me, one that's going to represent Derek, and one that's going to represent Kevin.
And there's actually a couple of his art on the wall. The Wonder Woman.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
And then the tree right below it. That's a couple of his original pieces.
Yeah, and Paul has a tremendous talent.
Yes.
I actually met him way back when at Dexter's Cards and Comics in Laurel, Mississippi.
Okay.
Back in 93, 94.
Yeah,
Something like that.
I mean, I would go in there to pick up my weekly comics or my Magic the Gathering cards.
I'd go in there and get
Oh,
my
yeah.
Magic the Gathering cards.
You know, sometimes the random dice pack if they had it. Yeah, Dexter was a really cool guy, and Paul worked at Dexter's, and then he went to another comic book shop. But just a tremendous talent, dude. He can draw anything, and if you ever get a chance to see him at a con when he is set up, stop and say hello.
Yes.
Super nice guy, super knowledgeable, and that's always something that stuck out in my mind. We've had some really epic discussions, kind of like what we have.
Yes.
And
yeah, he's everything, Star Trek, Star Wars, Marvel, DC.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's really a great person.
Yeah, and talking about epic conversations before we jump back to Mississippi Comic Con and what to expect. But you and I talked about this, and Kevin and I have done this forever. We'd always kind of have our, not where you're trashing each other's franchise, but you like to, who would win?
Yeah.
Who would win between Star Trek and Star Wars, right?
Right.
Don't answer, because we do not want to start a nerd.
Yes, we'll be for hours.
Right.
Yeah, because I know enough about both of them that I'd have to break it down like, all right, well, which species are we talking about? Which
Right.
weapon are we talking about? Which, what
Right.
planet are they on? So, yeah, we don't have time for that.
Yeah, I definitely think that it's noble that you think that you know enough that Kirk would win no matter what the situation was.
That's right. That's right.
Just kidding. We all know it's Darth Vader, but
I don't know.
Ah.
Kirk Fu's a good challenge for the Force.
chop.
That's it.
Come here, Palpatine.
To me, one of the most legendary discussions that people have had over the years is Marvel versus DC. Image kind of gets left out of that, and there's some indie artists, of course, that get left out. Valiant Comics from back in the day didn't get much talk there. But really, when you think about Marvel and DC, a lot of people forget that a lot of what became DC, you had Fawcett Comics, and you had all these other...
Vertigo.
Yeah, so where do you draw that limit? Do you mean DC, the all-encompassing, from what year, what writers?
See, I can't, because there are, when it comes to me, especially with DC, is, because I'm a Marvel fanboy. Any of y'all coming over to listen to my show, I'm a Marvel fanboy. But I give DC its credit where it's due. I'm not a hater of DC, unless we're talking about the cinematic universe. But that's more from a film critic side of me than it is a comic book lover side of me. But
And it's once they establish the DCEU that it becomes murky, because when you look at those Christopher Reeve Superman movies, when you look at the Batman movies with Michael Keaton, and
with
even
Nolan,
with Val
yeah.
Kilmer, to a degree, those movies pretty good. And you even said,
Well, and now they're saying they might have Keaton's Batman
Yeah.
to be in the new Flash movie, which would technically make Keaton's movies canon.
right, and I think that's what
Yeah.
they're going to try to do. Is they're going to try to, because they already did it in the Arrowverse when they
Yeah.
did the Crisis on Infinity Earths,
Yeah.
which they did.
I still don't know how they did that, but
Yeah.
Well, for me, I was never the comic book. So what I
Yeah.
know from Marvel and DC is mostly from the motion pictures. But I mean, I do like Marvel. But the one thing I will give DC is that I like their villains better.
yeah,
They have the better variety of villains.
Mama Bear would agree with you on that.
Yes, because
The only thing she liked about the new Batman movie was the Riddler.
the new Riddler was perfect.
Now
Yes.
that'll take us down another avenue, and everybody that I know who's a comic book fan will say the same thing. A hero is only as good as his villain
Yeah.
is bad, because if you have this all-powerful superhero who all he's fighting is checking bandits who are writing bounced checks.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah.
Where's the story? But when you have, and we'll use one of your cosplays as an example, when you have the intellect of Lex Luthor versus the power of Superman. Superman's no dummy, but the
Right.
criminal genius that is Lex Luthor is a match for this seemingly godlike character.
I would say it depends on the hero when you're making that argument. Like some heroes, the majority of heroes maybe even, are only as good as their villain. But if that's the case, but see, here's the thing with my favorite hero, Captain America. Captain America's not great because of his villains. He's great because of who he is. He stands up to bullies of all shapes and sizes.
but
Red Skull doesn't make Cap because there's been plenty of storylines where Red Skull was not even in it. He was just standing up to tyranny, and if tyranny's a villain, well,
Yeah.
but that's the point.
yeah,
Okay, so Cap is also my favorite Marvel character, and so that's something we share in common.
yeah,
Captain America versus the Red Skull is almost such a great matchup
yeah,
because of how evil the Red Skull is, and the Skull even tells him, "You and I are not like other people. You are more like me
yeah,
than the average person. Together, we can forget flags. We can forget nations."
hmm
He even tempts him almost the same way Darth Vader does to
Yeah.
Luke Skywalker.
join me.
So it is that Captain America is so great because he resists the temptation. He could have
Yeah.
joined him. He could,
I mean, we see that in the alternate reality where he becomes Agent Hydra.
right.
So yeah,
So it is. Cap's villain doesn't go by one name. It's
Right.
not just the Red Skull. It was fascism. It was totalitarianism. It has always been the unjust system versus the ideals that he stands for.
freedom and liberty and the pursuit of happiness and whatnot.
Right.
Yeah.
And it goes beyond its freedom on so many levels. And I hate when people just say, "Oh, well, he's just this," kind of like Tony Stark does in the first Avengers. Who he's
Yeah,
the
what are-
star-spangled hero, and
Yeah, what are nothing special? What is the line? Everything special about you came out of a bottle.
right.
Yep.
But that's actually not true because
And then-
he was picked.
Yeah, and then he says, "Why don't you go put on your suit?"
Right.
You know.
Right. Because that was the reason he was picked. Everyone else, when they threw the grenade, jumped away from it. Cap
Right.
was the only. Steve Rogers was the only person who jumped onto the grenade.
Right.
That's what
He's
made
the
him
one to make the
special.
sacrifice play.
And I think that that's where a lot of people, they kind of sell him short and say, well, he's just this patriotic hero. Well, he is a patriotic hero, but he doesn't stand for the American government. He doesn't stand for anything other than the promise of the American dream
He
and
stands
the
for being a good
ideals.
person.
Right.
Yes.
Which is
And that's
what we used
Right.
to take pride in as being Americans. That's what we grew up in the 80s. we were proud to be
Patriotism.
Americans because of the song, right? And we had all these movies that helped
Well,
reinforce it. You had Rambo, you had
Yeah,
Rocky.
Yeah, you even had Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
WWE.
Ooh, yeah.
Well, let me tell you something, brother. I think you're doing the Macho Man right now.
Me and
but-
Frank talked about doing a Hulk Hogan and Macho Man Randy Savage cosplay.
Oh yeah, that'd be
Yeah.
epic.
Of course, I'd have to be Hogan because I
course.
love
Yeah.
Hulk Hogan. I don't know how many prayers I said and how many vitamins I took, but it didn't quite work.
And when it comes to, but back to the original point of where do you draw that line of which is better and all that. My argument has always been both of them are the best at least one thing.
Right. Yeah.
So you can't say and that's why we do panels at the cons.
Yeah.
One of the panels we do is the no toxicity in my fandom, where we're just trying to put it like, hey, look guys, these people aren't your friends. If you're doing these kind of things, you're actually being toxic. You might not know it, but you're being toxic. This is toxic behavior. This is borderline toxic behavior, and so on and so forth. And we do that panel. We do the live talking nerdy panel, but that's one of the things I bring up is nothing is universally hated.
Right.
So thus, if that's true, which it is, you also can't say that there is one better than the other. There are aspects to our individual brains that are better at certain things.
I mean,
To me, DC is better in the comic side of things because they did Rebirth. A lot of DC fans don't like Rebirth, but that universe needed a rebirth. It was getting too convoluted, too complicated. Marvel needs one now. The comics are getting way too crazy. All the storylines are supposed to connect. You can't. Now, on the cinematic side,
Yeah,
Marvel's
got
clearly
it.
the winner.
but on the TV side, see, I liked the Arrowverse a little bit better than but that's only because we've only gotten 4 shows out of Disney Plus so far.
Yeah.
So, give me more shows and I might change my mind, but they're also short. They're not seasons long.
That little mini series.
Yeah, see, I loved Arrow. I loved Flash. I liked the first few seasons of DC's Legends of Tomorrow, and I even watched the first season of Batwoman. And I thought they were pretty well done.
Yep.
They introduced a lot of the characters. They changed the backstories, but it's that universe. It works.
Well, I think that brings us into our "It's All Geek to Me" segment,
Okay.
and that's a new segment where we're going to talk about something where we're actually going to geek out for a minute. And anybody who wants to join into this can add stuff in the comments, and we'll revisit it later.
Yep.
But
Oh, so this is like our Talking Nerdy segment.
very similar, very
Okay,
very
cool.
similar.
Cool.
So, what I want to geek out about is what you just said. I want to talk about what really constitutes toxicity in fandom, because, and I want to break this down so that people understand it. When you have a legitimate criticism, there's a right way to bring it up, and then there's a wrong way, and we all know this. And guys, part of what makes geek culture so special is we all grew up reading about these heroes, wanting to emulate these heroes, and the first lesson that every good superhero learns is to treat people with respect, right?
Yep.
Superman's not out there, unless we're talking about Kingdom Come, he's not out there treating everyday citizens like they're nothing.
Or Injustice.
Exactly.
Right, Injustice.
The
What
Injustice
did I
storyline
say?
too. Kingdom Come. No, he did it in.
Yeah.
He's done it in multiple storylines.
Right.
Yeah.
The Red Sun Superman is probably the worst at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the only citizens that matter to him are Russian citizens. So.
Right. but good old Smallville that we all know and love.
Oh yeah.
He treats them all a great deal of respect, and he even goes so far as to not destroy our nuclear weapons without our asking, like he does in
Yep.
Superman 4. Terrible movie, by the way, but it has its redeeming qualities. I do like a lot of things in it. Gene Hackman, amazing.
Yes.
But when you go into some of the things, and Kevin and I do this in a very respectful way when we talk about Star Trek, which is our big passion. There are things that we don't necessarily like about some of the shows, but we still come back and watch them because we enjoy the core of what Star Trek is.
Tell a good
Yes.
story.
Tell a good
Tell a
story.
good story.
Tell a good story.
I would never.
That's-
Yes, and I would never go up to a fan of the same franchise who happens to like an episode that I don't like, and tell them you're wrong for liking this episode.
Or you're not a true fan for liking this or not liking something else.
Right.
Well, and it's not Star Trek related, but it's another star. It's Wars. So me and Hombrello had this conversation, and this kind of goes along with what you're saying. You know, he, along with a large majority of the old school Star Wars fans, did not like The Last Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
For what reason, I don't know. I liked it. It's a Star Wars movie to me. I'm not a diehard fan or anything, but it's a Star Wars movie to me. Now, cinematically, can I judge it? Sure.
Yeah.
But I can judge all 9 of the movies that way.
Right.
I can judge the whole MCU that way if I want to look at it through that lens. So he asked me, he's like, so I don't like Last Jedi. There are a lot of things about Rey Skywalker I don't like. Would you constitute me as toxic if I'm voicing that opinion online? I said, only if you do or don't do these 3 things. First of all, there are people out there so diehard mad at Last Jedi, they're trying to sign petitions to get it decanonized.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Which is
that's
silly.
toxic.
Yes.
That's
Right.
toxic. That
Well, it's
you're
it's,
taking that away from other people
exactly.
that did enjoy it.
It's basically forcing your will upon everyone else, even though they may not agree.
Yeah, and as much as we as fans love these franchises and we say that we own part of these franchises, we really don't.
No.
It's the creators and the actual owners of the IP who get to decide what is
Right.
canon and what is not.
That's right.
So don't get online asking for it to be decanonized. That's automatic toxic right there. And that's the high bar.
Yeah.
The middle bar is don't argue from a standpoint of fact. That's where, for me, you cross into that toxicity. Well, this is true, and I know it's true. Okay, first of all, these movies were made for entertainment. Entertainment is opinion-based. Thus, I don't care what your facts are. Your facts can be, like, for instance, the Rise of Skywalker. It was delayed several times. That's a fact. The directors couldn't figure out which direction to go in. That's a fact. Is it a bad movie?
That's an opinion.
That's an opinion.
Yep.
You can't say that it is a bad movie because those things happen. Those are facts, but this is an opinion.
Right.
And the third thing that I ask people to do, so there's 2 don'ts and a do. The third thing I tell people to do is, anytime you're posting your opinion of something, IMO.
Yeah.
Yes.
In my opinion, this.
Right.
Yep.
If that's your opinion and you label it so, then you did nothing wrong, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Right.
I can debate you if I want to, but at the end of the day,
You have a right to your opinion.
you have a right to your opinion.
Yeah, and I agree. That's where the line really is.
Mhm.
Is when you try to force your opinion to be the only viewpoint.
Right.
I'm a big believer. There are things, especially in Star Trek, that we consider canon because it's been on screen, and that was always
Yes.
the bar.
Yeah.
If it's
Yes.
on screen, it's canon. If it's a novel or anything else,
It's not.
It's not. Now there are things that are conflicting. Well, have you given the writers time to explain why there may be a conflict?
Right.
Because, again, as much as we want to say we know everything, how many times has James T. Kirk gone back in time? How many times has he flown around the sun to change the events?
Mhm.
How many times have they stepped through a portal
And
to do something, messed something up, and had to go back and fix it? City of the Edge of
It's
Forever.
messed
But,
up.
Comparatively, look at Rick and Morty.
yes.
right.
Rick and Morty, all of the seasons of Rick and Morty that exist right now are one continuous storyline. But can you tell me how many, like, if we're actually still on the same Rick and Morty that were in episode 1?
Right.
I mean, can you with 100%
That's
fact
right.
tell me that we are still on the same 2 characters that we met in season 1, episode 1,
Right.
in the current season right now?
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
that's 100% it.
Yes.
And people argue over, well, this is not the Prime universe, or this is not
not.
this universe, or this is not Earth 616.
tell a story.
Okay. What? And again, you know this because this is your opinion. Because that's what they'll say. Because the
Yeah.
writer says this is here. So according to the writer, it's here. But you're telling me no, it's not here. That's
Right.
your opinion.
That's right.
And even if the writer does say it's there, okay.
Right.
One writer said that. Did they write the whole thing by themselves?
Yeah.
That's
now,
the other thing.
Yep.
now,
Give credit where it's due, especially.
yes. Don't contradict Stan Lee.
But okay, I love Stanley. He's not infallible. He's just not. One example comes to mind. I'm sure there's several. But the whole Iron Man nose thing. You know, when he was like, I think you should put a nose on the mask. It looks funny, him not having a nose. And then they put a nose on it. Fans hated it. And they removed it. And then they asked Stan, why'd you decide to put a nose on Iron Man? I didn't do that. And you know that if there's at least one example of that, there's got to be multiple.
Yep.
I mean, he is the godfather of Marvel Comics. He also didn't do it alone, but that's, you know, so my whole thing is, not even Stan Lee is the, even if he was still alive today, is the go-to knows everything source.
When you just said Stan Lee is the godfather of Marvel Comics, I heard the ghost of Jack Kirby say, "Don't forget
Well,
me."
I did say he didn't do it alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do love the fact that the story of Jack Kirby, and I'd love to get into just a conversation about when he took on the Nazis that came to Marvel Comics, and he told them all, you know, in this story in a nutshell, a bunch of guys came, got pissed off that they put Hitler, you know, being punched on the first comic of Captain America. Jack Kirby took the call and said, all right, tell them to wait for me. I'll come down and meet them. And by the time he got down to the lobby, they were gone. So,
Yeah. And that's a good point. What does Captain America do? He punches Nazis.
Yep.
Yep.
And that's something that I often find funny. I don't want to get too far off topic here, but anytime I see somebody try to use Captain America in a way that doesn't fit with the character,
well, we saw it at that store today.
yeah. And we won't get into that, but definitely, you know, always remember Cap got his start by punching Hitler in the face.
Yep.
And
he stands up to bullies no matter where they're
That's
from.
right. Don't want to kill anybody.
Nope.
I just don't like bullies.
And that's actually not too far off topic, because my other thing of toxicity, like the example we especially use, we had it pointed out to us when we went to CypherCon. We were doing the no toxicity panel, and I said, can anyone name, like anyone in the audience, can you name one thing that you think is universally hated? Guy's hand went up. I said, yeah. What do you think is universally hated? He said, Adolf Hitler. I said, really? So there's not a whole generation of neo-Nazis that think he was right and that still view him as some sort of god that died. Some sort of messiah. And he's like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, see, there's no such thing as universal hatred. There is not one thing on this entire planet that every single person in the world says, I don't like that.
Yep. There's going to be at least one person or a group of people that's just going to like something.
Well, and on the flip side of that, like we talked about this when we did our Pokemon episode, but like one of the creators of Pokemon, his favorite thing about Pokemon was that there's not a single Pokemon out there. And this was back when there was only like 700. Now there's like over 1,000. But he went on record to say his favorite thing about his creation is that there's not a single Pokemon out there that doesn't have at least one person that's their favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So there is a flip side. There's just also, there's no such thing as universal hatred. There's also no such thing as universal love either.
Yep.
Right. And that's a good point, because as bad as New Coke was, there were some people who liked it.
Yeah.
As forgettable as Crystal Clear Pepsi was, there are some people who liked it.
Well, and that was me. I love Crystal Pepsi. I was one of the few.
Jason Casey.
Yeah.
I
Actually,
don't know what that is.
You're not old
was-
enough.
Yeah, it was in the early 90s.
It's a
What
marketing
do they just
thing.
do? Take
It was
the
just
brown
clear.
dye out of Pepsi?
It basically
It was
it was
Pepsi that was
literally
clear.
clear Pepsi.
Okay.
But it did have a little different taste to it. But they marketed it with Van Halen's "Right Now" song. Right now.
Oh, okay.
That was the marketing for it, and it was supposed to have been like the big thing in the '90s, and it didn't.
It lasted just a little while.
Yeah. But I loved it.
I think one summer.
I mean, yeah. I mean,
And New Coke was supposed to be the new formula,
Well,
and it was so disliked. Now, there's the conspiracy theory
that I subscribe to. I'll admit,
that was Coke's clever way to switch from
sugar,
real sugar to high fructose corn syrup.
Yep.
That they came up with a product so bad.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that I 100% believe that, but I could get on board with that theory with a
Well,
little more,
And my thing, that may not have been their original intention, but the outcome, it worked out.
Yeah.
Because when they switched back to the Coke Classic, sales skyrocketed.
Yeah.
People wanted that back,
Yeah.
and everybody ran out and bought it.
And actually, up to that point, Pepsi was actually winning.
Pepsi was winning the cola war,
Yeah.
right?
And literally, the new Coke was actually technically supposed to have been Coke, tasted more like Pepsi.
Yeah, and because
That
what
was,
I think we took a class where the research showed the reason why Pepsi always won the blind taste test wasn't because Pepsi actually tastes better, because that's an opinion. It's because the amount of sugar in the Pepsi would hit your taste buds first, so people in a blindfolded taste test, they would get that sensation, so they would pick Pepsi first.
Mhm.
It was more science to it than it was actual preference, because a lot of people later would say, well, I actually like this one better, but their immediate reaction from that small taste test would go this
Yeah.
way.
yeah.
And that was a marketing class where the teacher gave us that theory.
And talking about marketing, one other thing for Toxicity, one thing I've noticed, especially lately, and y'all have probably noticed this too, is why do we have all this fan service? What's up with all this fan service?
I enjoy fan service.
Me too.
Thank you.
Dude,
Yes.
movies are they're entertainment. By their
Yep.
definition, they are fan
Exactly.
service. Do not sit
Well-
here and tell me that Marvel is sitting right now, that Feige is sitting in a room going, I want to make a movie for me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's not
Yeah.
happening.
right,
Well,
Every writer, everybody is going, what are the fans going to like?
exactly.
right.
Because we need to make money, because we need to justify making this movie. We need to
And-
justify spending this money.
And for me personally, I love it because it's like them saying thank you for spending your time to watch our
Yeah.
product, to buy our merchandise. It's like a thank you to the fans for supporting them.
Come on,
That's what I think about.
Golden Girls, right? Thank you for being a fan. So, yeah, I was pointing because I was thinking that we were on the same wavelength there. Yeah, dude, it's one of my favorite things about Star Trek, Strange New Worlds. Shocker that I would go there. I love
Wait, what's that?
Strange New Worlds. Anson Mount as Captain Christopher Pike. Great show. If you haven't
Yes.
seen it, check it out.
That's the newest series.
It's the newest one, and it's very much a return to the way things were with the original
it's more
series.
episodic.
Right.
You don't have the
You don't need this
season long.
grand
Yeah.
story.
But they do have there, and it's not bad. Like the characters have like a background, ongoing story.
Right. So
But-
but you could miss an episode and not be
Yes,
totally lost.
exactly.
Kind of like Deep Space Nine did.
Well, see that, and that's we talked about this before we sat down to record.
Wait,
but
wait,
that's
wait.
what I liked about the Orville too.
Yes.
Same thing.
You gotta let me tell about the fan service, sir.
Yeah. You mean like Picard?
No, the outside shots of the ship and the way that they have tried to fix one of the big fan complaints about how futuristic this tech that's supposed to have happened before the original series looks compared to the original series, because those sets were made in the 1960s.
Right.
That is what they thought the future was going to look like. Newsflash,
1966.
that's not what the future looked like. Sorry.
Yeah.
But it inspired the future. The communicator inspired cell phones, the pad,
The pad.
all of these things. The
Uhura's
medical
ear,
scanner.
Uhura's
FaceTime,
earpiece.
The FaceTime.
Right.
Visual communication.
So as we have improved, thanks to this show, because everything we learned by watching Star Trek. There's a book about that.
Yeah.
All I'm sitting here thinking is just like when you said the whole, this is what they thought the future was going to be like. Have you heard of 2001: A Space Odyssey?
I have.
Yeah.
I want to know where my flying car is at
Right,
this point.
yeah.
There's so many things that I
Where's my
was
Marty
promised.
McFly hoverboard?
Or me, the Jetsons, George Jetson,
Yeah.
Right.
and the dome houses.
Wasn't that set in like the year 2000 or something like
It
that?
was like
Or 2039?
It was like 20. I thought it was 23rd, 24th century.
I'm not 100% sure, but
Yeah.
what I will say is, but what I was saying about Strange New Worlds is, they actually do a really good job of taking the original series control panels and
Yes.
blending them.
And even going as far as usually, like the original sound effects.
Yeah,
That they may have remastered them, but whenever they push a button, it's that old
Yeah.
the sound and like the
Attention to detail.
yeah.
right. So it's not only canon that they're trying to stay true to, but it's also a little bit of fan service, right?
Yes.
And that's the kind of fan service we appreciate. We appreciate when you have 3 different Spider-Man
Yeah.
Yes.
on screen pointing at each other.
If I want to watch a non-fan service movie, there are plenty out there that I could go and watch.
Right.
That's my point. No one is going to the theater going, man, I sure wish they'd make a Marvel movie that doesn't follow the continuity of the MCU. Because first of all, you'd be bonkers. They already did that with a TV show called Moon Knight. But
yeah.
but they're not going to do that.
Yep.
The MCU is a money maker for Disney. They're not going to sit here and stop telling the same story.
Yeah, and all right, now that's another big pet peeve of mine. If we're going to talk about toxicity, do not come at me with this. It's not exactly like it was in the comic book.
Oh, I
Great.
hate that one so
Because
much.
if it was, why would you watch it? You already know how it's going to end.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There's absolutely no reason for you to be invested in this story.
And we've said that several times on our show, especially when we're talking about Marvel franchise, products. The next episode of Marvel is what I like to say, whether it be shows or movies or whatever, is they never said it was.
Right.
They promised you way back when RDJ first put on the the red and yellow suit was, this is our story. We are taking artistic liberties, basing some stuff off the comic books. This is not a comic book story. This is, you're not going to find this exact story in a comic book unless we put it out later, which they did. But you're not going to find this exact story in a comic book.
Yep.
We're taking elements from huge campaigns and stuff, like the Infinity Gauntlet saga.
Right.
The Stones never hurt anyone in the comic books. Matter of fact, the biggest challenge for the Stones was, if someone's holding it, they got to be really careful what they're thinking about. That's the danger.
Right.
Thanos.
Don't accidentally think that Captain America somehow survived.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
then that started a cascade effect of other heroes.
Right. No. It's never been. No one ever said, we're basing this exactly off of this comic book.
Right.
Well, I
This is why
remember, The Walking Dead.
Right.
When it was on, everybody thought the show was going to follow the graphic novel the way it went. Kirkman said no, and he basically diverged it. That way, it's an original story. You don't know what's going to happen.
It's happening in that universe.
That's right.
It's using some elements of some of the characters. Completely different story.
Exactly.
Well, and let's be honest. Even within the comics, how many times have we seen Batman's parents get shot? How many times have we seen Superman crash land? And it's slightly different with each writer or each telling of the story. Or
Under
we
the Red
find out,
Sun.
right, we find out, oh, well, this actually was happening at the same time. There were other things that affected this. You don't always know 100% what's going on all the time. So there are a lot of liberties you can take.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I will always remind people of, if you try to force them to follow the comics, you are going to alienate a large group of the fan base. There are people who come to see these movies who are new to these characters, and they have fallen in love with these versions of the characters.
That's how I was with Marvel, the movies, because I'd never read Captain America comic, Iron Man, Thor, but I fell in love with the characters through the movies.
Yeah.
So
if you need to borrow any Captain America comics, I think I've got you covered.
Yeah.
Yep. And I have the omnibuses of the death and rebirth of Captain America at my house. So if you get to those and just want to, some big books.
Captain America never died. That's fake news.
That is technically true. Spoiler alert. He doesn't actually die. He's, put on a scroll vessel. But, and that's another thing that really upsets me when it comes to, like you just said, you never read the comics. I'm sure a lot of people did. And like you said, you're alienating a huge portion of these people that are going to go watch these movies or watch these shows. If you go, this is based off this comic book, exactly, we didn't change a damn thing. Disney already tried that.
Right.
They did that with Aladdin, all the live action remakes. And in Aladdin, they tried to do it frame by frame for the most part. They added in some extra stuff here and there. Same thing with Beauty and the Beast. And
people immediately complained.
Yeah, but they also complained that Bill Murray was Baloo in the Jungle Book that wasn't a frame by frame. So you can't have your cake and eat it too.
Right.
So, and what gets me the most riled up is when people go, I can't believe they cast that person to play that character without watching the movie first.
Right.
Right, yeah.
That is the biggest thing I ask is watch it first.
See, I'm guilty of that. I will admit.
Yeah.
And I'm big enough to admit when I'm wrong. When I first heard Robert Pattinson was going to be Batman.
Right. I was about to say.
No. Well, when I watched it, it completely changed my mind. He was a great actor. He played the character perfectly. Great movie. So, yeah, I'm big enough to admit when I was wrong.
And when we did our Battinson installment is what we called it. We did an episode all about that movie specifically. We said most of the people, a good majority of them, and this was just our opinion, didn't like the idea of Pattinson being Batman beforehand because all they knew him from was Twilight.
Exactly.
Right.
That was me.
But he, being a British actor, had been in a multitude of other films other than Twilight. That's just the only one that took off here in America.
Right. I knew him from Harry Potter. Cedric Diggory.
Yeah, Cedric Diggory.
And I thought that was a well done role. I've never seen Twilight. I don't plan to. Don't give me hate mail because of that.
Yeah, don't
it's just
give
not
me
my
hate
thing.
mail.
I mean,
it's just not something that I'm interested in.
I mean, I'd feel weird if you said that you were going to watch the movie. You weren't going to watch the movies, but you were going to read the books.
No, it's just not a universe that I care to get into.
I mean, now can I sit here as a nerd and say that I haven't downed some different movies or whatever? No, I can't. Ready Player One. And most of the time, what gets me the most upset is when you don't stick to the source material at all.
Yeah.
Like, the only thing they took away from the book to make that movie was there's this video game world, people are in it. There's also this real world, people are poor in it. And, oh yeah, there's this contest of some kind. Go.
Right.
Like, I get that you wanted to put the DeLorean and the Iron Giant and all this stuff into one big movie. You could have done a little bit more, research, just like M. Night Shyamalan could have done it with that one movie that I don't like to bring up, but it's that Nickelodeon movie that he had never seen a single episode before he took the job.
The Last Airbender.
Oh my goodness. I call him
Now, we had talked about this at MobyCon, another Sonic, the Sonic movie.
Yeah.
When they just redesigned Sonic, just because of the fan input. Now, did they have to do that? No,
we'll never know.
Exactly.
That's the sad part.
They could have just left him alone.
It could have been the same performance, because they didn't change it. They didn't re-record anything.
Nope.
All they did was change Sonic.
Exactly.
They didn't redo any, filming or anything like that.
Technically, they didn't have to do that.
No.
But they decided, for the fans, let's re-examine Sonic's appearance.
And there's been a ton of backlash already for She-Hulk. It's not even out yet. We haven't seen her on screen. And there's
an unfinished trailer.
Right.
Exactly.
There's always a disconnect between the trailer and the final product. We've even seen that with No Way Home. There were scenes that were in the trailer that looked completely different because they had cut scenes out to keep from spoiling things.
Or how about the fact that one of the last trailers for Infinity War had Hulk in the lineup,
Right.
and Hulk never shows up in the movie.
Yep.
There was even a Funko Pop of Hulk busting out of the Hulkbuster armor.
Yeah.
And that was in a deleted scene that we didn't find out about until like 5 years after the movie.
That's right.
So, I think what we're getting at is give things a chance.
Yeah.
Always be respectful. And it's okay to have an opinion, but just remember, it's your opinion.
Yeah.
That's right.
Quick disclaimer. For those of us who are older, I grew up watching some movies that I was just grateful to see. Swamp Thing.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
They need to, they even had a series for a brief period
Yeah,
of
it
time.
got canceled halfway through the first season.
Right, and that to me as a kid, I loved it. It was a comic book title that I was a big fan of.
And Swamp Thing's story is so nice.
Right, but
Just the green.
and I think
It's an amazing thing that should be explored.
yeah, I think part of the reason why it got canceled is it wasn't ready because the way we have access to cable and streaming wasn't there yet.
No.
Yep.
They could have easily put it out now as a CW
Same thing
show.
with Firefly.
Yeah,
You know, if it had streaming and even more social media, I think it would have lasted a lot longer.
See,
Star Trek Enterprise. I really
that's
think
yes.
there weren't enough people who had access to the Paramount Network at
Exactly.
the time.
yeah, because see, I'm one of those, like, I love Firefly, don't get me wrong, but if they rebooted it now,
Yeah,
I wouldn't watch it.
I don't think it would work. I
Well,
don't think it
And some things happen like that. You know, you
right.
get your
would. Well,
shot,
it's like
it doesn't work. You might gain a cult following later.
Babylon
Yeah.
5. You know, J. Michael Straczynski, he's in the process now of doing a reboot of Babylon 5.
Mm-hmm.
What made the original Babylon 5 so great was your actors. You
Yeah.
know, the core, where unfortunately a lot of them have already passed away.
Right.
So to redo it now, will it be as good as the original? I mean, I'm gonna give it a shot, but
And see, and that's the thing. As long as you're going to give it a shot,
yeah,
that's what matters.
Exactly.
Like, I watch everything Marvel puts out. I watch everything DC puts out. I even put aside my opinion of Fantastic Beasts 3 because I was able to watch it for absolute free without having to actually
Free.
sign into
Yeah.
my HBO Max account to watch it.
I watched it, and I enjoyed the story.
I feel like that actor probably should have been Grindelwald the whole time.
Yeah,
I did miss the fact that Johnny wasn't in it, but it didn't change the story for me.
yeah.
and I think what they should do is, in my humble opinion, I think they should change it again. Since we had Colin Farrell, then we had a
Yeah.
movie where he was primarily in the first movie. Then you had Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
Now you've had Mads. I think change it again.
Yeah.
That's part of Grindelwald. He's a chameleon. He can change
he's
his
a new
appearance.
person, because guess who they haven't had play him yet? The Grindelwald from the end of the Harry Potter series, where he's the old man in the prison.
Right.
Yep.
So to me,
we got to get there somehow.
Exactly.
right. To me, that would give you a good explanation, in-universe
Yeah.
He
explanation.
just
Is that
always
he's
uses potions all the time, or changes his appearance through magic somehow.
right?
Yeah.
Because especially now that they're all looking for him again, it would
Yeah.
make perfect sense.
And that even goes back to say Doctor Who. You know how the original
Right.
Doctor Who. They said when Hartnell got too old, or had to retire to play the character, they just said, well, we'll just make him regenerate into a new, and it works.
yeah.
And so situations like that can work in cinema. If it's written correctly.
And that is the thing.
Tell a good story.
Exactly.
That's all it comes down to.
That's all it comes
But
down to.
talking about being grateful for these shows, we had the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, which lasted 4 seasons. We had a lot of stuff that got canceled before it got to really, really finish. But if you had asked me at the young age of 12 years old if there would ever be an Avengers movie on the big screen, I would have said no.
Yeah.
If you had asked me, would there ever be a Justice League movie, even though I loved Christopher Reeves as Superman and I loved Michael Keaton as Batman, the closest thing we had seen to Wonder Woman at that point was the TV show,
Yeah.
which had already been, it'd been a while since it had been on, and so that concept of bringing in a lot of big actors into the same movie,
Yeah. The
was
Avengers was the first time that happened.
right. I mean,
They made it happen.
Right.
And as much flack as he gets, Joss Whedon did a good job on that movie.
Right.
Not so much his version of the Justice League, but I can only say that because I've seen the Snyder Cut.
Yeah.
yeah, but again, we're also
Will I
have to-
watch both? Sure.
Yeah, and you have to
Yes.
go with the understanding that Snyder had time to go in and make some changes and really play out his vision because they gave him a little more of a free hand.
Right.
Would that have been his version?
No, because he would have had to cut it down for runtime.
Right,
Exactly.
vision version.
Vision version.
I combined that into one word for a second. His version. Probably not because of the
Yeah.
runtime issue. So would it have been as good? Maybe not. So all we can do now, when it comes to the Justice League, is move forward. And I say this directly into the camera because it was never really the Justice League in the first place because you didn't have a Green Lantern in it.
Yep. Or a Martian Manhunter.
Yeah, well, I'm a Green Lantern is my favorite DC
Well,
character.
see, for
so-
me, the Justice League, the first time I ever knew about the Justice League, as far as on screen, was the original animated movie that started
Oh,
out
yeah.
the new animated series, where it was Jon Stewart, Kal-El, Batman, Wonder Woman, Hawk Girl, and Martian Manhunter,
yeah,
Yep.
and Flash.
for goodness sake, let's have a Justice League movie where you not only have Hal Jordan is my favorite, but I
Jon
want
Stewart's
Jon
my
Stewart. I want Guy Gardner. I want
I would love to see Guy Gardner on the big screen.
to see Alan Scott at some point.
Yeah.
I want him to come into, at the end of the comics, a lot of times they would have them all sitting at a coffee shop or a bar. They would be talking, and he would show up and he would have some wise advice. Give us that on screen.
Yeah.
Make a Green Lantern Corps movie that's worth watching and that
actually has
focuses.
the core in it.
Correct. Actually
Yeah.
focuses on the core. I mean, Kilowog is a great character.
Yeah.
I mean, look at how many stories you could tell, and it would never get old. Even if you do it as an animated show on HBO Max, I would watch it. I really enjoyed the
Well, they did
animated
put out
one that they were
animated
right,
Green Lantern show, but it was all based around Hal.
right.
Yeah.
So
It was but it was also them going out against the
Yeah.
Red Lanterns, and you could see had it continued, you could see where it was going to
Yeah.
eventually encompass the entire color spectrum and that.
I would love to see an on-screen version of Atroclus.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like, and the little cat thing that
Yeah.
I can't remember the cat's name, but I would love to see that. Like that would be amazing.
Speaking of, and this is completely off topic, but you're talking about cats.
It's all geek to me.
Do you remember? do you remember when they did the Alice in Wonderland video game, and it was like this twisted version of Alice in Wonderland?
Yeah, Alice in Madness.
Right.
Yeah.
I have it on my 360
Dude,
at home right now, or
that-
my Xbox One at home right
That version of the Cheshire Cat was really creepy.
now. Yeah,
Yeah.
that whole video game is creepy. What are you
Yeah.
talking about?
Yeah.
But I would love to see an on-screen version of that
Yeah.
version
Exactly.
of Alice.
Yes.
That would be amazing.
All right. Well, I think that's going to end the All Geek to Me segment, and we're going to go back to our prep for Mississippi Comic Con. Kevin's number one rule for Mississippi Comic Con.
Hagrid.
No. Your number one rule. What do you want to tell everybody? Don't
Oh.
forget to do this.
Don't forget to hydrate.
Hydrate, because that line, if it's anything like it was last year, is going to be
Yes.
extremely long to get into the building.
And it's going to be extremely hot this year.
Right, we're
Oh.
experiencing some record temperatures
Yes.
for the month of June right now. Bear, your number one rule. What do you want to tell everybody?
It's a two-parter. Both of them have to do with cosplay. So it's one rule. Cosplay has no body type, thus do not shame anyone for the cosplay they wear.
Yeah.
And along with that, cosplay is not consent.
Yes.
Tell everybody what you mean. I know we've done an episode on it before, but just to remind everyone.
Cosplay has no body type pretty much means if someone feels comfortable in the cosplay they're doing, I don't care if it's store-bought because they bought it at Party City or offline or what. I don't care if it's one of those pajama onesie jumpsuit things. If they're cosplaying and they're having fun, leave them alone. Because
Right.
again, it's your opinion, not their reality, and they don't need your opinion to affect their reality. And cosplay is not consent. You should ask permission to take photos. even if it's a simple costume.
Yeah.
You know, even if it's, you know, you're Loki and my Captain America, you know, you should probably still ask because one, and, you know, there's a lot of different things that, you know, cosplay is not consent, but the main thing is, to quote Pink, we're not here for your entertainment. You know, we're here to have fun with our friends, to cosplay, to meet celebrities and stuff like that. You want a photo of us, you know, whether it be my Captain America in your Loki cosplay, or, you know, if we're all the Harry Potter, you know, Hagrid, Snape, Lupin, whatever, we could be talking, we could be in in-depth conversation. We could be recording something for this podcast or my podcast for all you know. You need to ask instead of just going, hey, you know, because you wouldn't like that if we did that to you. Like, I'm going to take your photo.
Right.
You know, so,
Well,
yeah.
and especially when it comes to, like, the scantily clad.
That and
you
you
know.
know another thing is cosplay. You do your pose and everything with it
Yeah,
because that way, because that's actually an expression of your art. You know how you do your poses, your action shots. So if you just like if you're sitting there and you're looking this way and someone's taking a picture from that way, it's not going to be more likely not going to be a good looking picture anyway.
No.
Right, and I think a lot of people are afraid to ask, but most cosplayers, look, we didn't get all dressed up and dolled up for nothing. We want you to take our pictures. We just want you to do it in a way that represents us well, because some cosplayers do this for a living,
Yeah.
and they're very protective of their brand.
Or they're even just trying to get their name out there. Like,
Yes.
you could have a starting cosplayer that needs you to, you know, needs your photo of them to be on point.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, as much as possible.
And on the flip side of that, always remember, in our culture, especially when it comes to the nerd culture, we have a lot of introverts. I mean, we are built on introverts.
Yes.
Some people may not be comfortable in their environment, but you making that simple gesture of just asking them makes them more comfortable. And it gives them that opportunity to consent. That's very important. So please always ask. That's an excellent point.
And even from my point of view, you know, it can help with self-esteem too.
Yep.
When you go through that and someone's actually wanting to take your picture, it makes them feel good.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, that you're actually wanting to take their picture.
And, you know, and for, like, the other, you know, stuff for that is, like, the scantily clad women might not want you just snapping a photo. You look a little bit like a creeper.
Not only that,
You're
but
doing that.
they may be, because some of their costumes are a little revealing in certain poses.
Yeah.
If they bend over to pick something off the ground, don't be that dude.
Yeah.
Don't.
And don't touch without permission.
Oh yeah.
And that's not just for, you know, that's not a, you know, no, don't touch me there, you know, you're in my no square. It's not that all 100%. It started out as that, but now with the developments in, like, sensory overload, and these are events where you're going to run into, like, people on the spectrum, you know, adults and kids. You're going to run into a bunch of that. You can't just say, hey, I'm going to touch you, because you could send someone off for all you know.
Yep.
And it's also important to realize a lot of these costumes have very delicate pieces.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if you go put your arm around somebody to bring them in close, you may crush a part of their costume.
Yeah.
You may damage their.
Might have
their
a wardrobe
work.
malfunction like Janet Jackson. You know, you never know.
Or
So,
you
yeah.
could be holding a prop and it makes you drop your prop and it breaks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And especially some of these props, it's handcrafted, 3D printed. It takes time, and if you grab someone and they accidentally drop it and it breaks, that really hurts. I mean that.
Yeah. So my number one rule.
What is your number one
Since
rule?
no one asked me. My number one rule is actually just a public service announcement for the Bear and the Beard podcast. It's a conversation that the Bear and I had developed into an idea, and he talked over with his co-host, and they came up with this great idea, and I'm going to let him talk about it because this needs to be something that people are aware of.
Yep.
So Bear, tell everybody about your
So
table.
for this year, for this con, we at the Bear and the Beard podcast booth are officially, unofficially establishing our booth as a safe space. And we talked, you know, I talked a minute ago about, like, sensory overload and stuff like that. We know that that's a real thing. since our whole show is about spreading positivity and love while just nerding out, we decided this year to be a safe space for everybody. If you're experiencing some hate, or you're getting a weird vibe from somebody, come let us know. We're connected enough because this is our home con that we can pull a volunteer aside and say, hey, I need such and such to come to this table.
Right.
Or we can go find such and such, or we can get security or whatever. If it's a serious problem, we can help. If you don't feel comfortable going directly to them, we can help. If you are experiencing sensory overload, come sit down. Now, I can't guarantee that it's going to be quiet, but we're going to have enough staff there and friends like y'all that we can just sit someone down to just talk to you. Hey, you need a snack, need a granola bar, need a water, you need something, you good? Okay, we're going to leave you here, chill out, let us know when, you're ready to go. Because that's just something that we should all be doing,
Yes.
We even had, I cannot remember right off the top of my head, but I want to make sure I shout this out, is that another booth at con, it's one of the vendor booths. She's a friend of ours. I can't remember the name of it. Oh man.
It'll come back to him as soon as the podcast is over.
It'll come back to me as soon as we're done recording. But she said they're always, they haven't said it out loud, but thanks to us doing that. And that all started with a conversation with you, because me and you were talking about how that should be a thing.
Yeah.
Like, why aren't there designated safe spaces at these events? And I don't know if it's so much like, because I think they used to have that, but I think it's one of those things.
I think it kind of fell away.
It falls through the cracks because they think, and I say they, like the people organizing the event, are very optimistic, and they think we don't need that anymore. The community is ever growing, ever accepting. You're part right, but there's always still going to be some negativity out there. So we're not saying that they have to. We're going to. If they want to, great. If they want to bring it back, make it a thing, cool.
And as a parent of 4 children,
Tasuna's Corner. Sorry, it just pulled up. TSNUNA's Corner. Tasuna's Corner.
but as a father of 4 kids, another father of 4 kids, as an uncle to my 4 kids, one of the scariest things that ever happened did involve my kids. Kelly and I, my wife and I, had gone to Disney World on our honeymoon, and no, this wasn't on our honeymoon. This was on our 5th anniversary, 10th anniversary. We didn't have we didn't have our kids. We took a trip just for us. We took the kids later that year, but we had a small trip, just the 2 of us, and we were having breakfast on Main Street, and we saw a panicked father looking for his daughter. And I happened to see the daughter, or I saw a young child panicked, separated, and stuck in a crowd of people, and she could not get out. There wasn't a cast member close by, so our parental instincts kicked in, and Kelly went and got the dad, and I went and got the girl, and we met in the middle and reunited them. And it was scary for us because I know how that feels.
Yeah.
Several years later, after we had Solomon, when we got off Pirates of the Caribbean, the crowd tends to force you in a direction. And we all got forced this way when the ride got out, but Solomon was still small enough that he kind of meandered his way around. And for a brief second, we couldn't lay eyes on Solomon.
Mm-hmm.
And it was that initial panic. I mean, you're in this theme park and there's thousands of people and you can't see your kid. Of course, Solomon did exactly what we told him to do. He found a cast member.
Mm-hmm.
So Solomon wasn't lost. We were lost. And I'm telling that story to say, if you get separated from your parents, the safe space still applies. Come to this booth.
Yes.
Look for the bear and the beard. It's half a bear and half a beard.
Yep.
Is their logo. They've got a table set up. They usually have a Captain America shield in the background.
We have the prop table that we set up for kids of all ages to come and try out some of our props that we got from our personal collection.
Yeah.
So
Look for that table. And like he said, they know enough of the volunteers. There'll be enough of their friends around like us. We'll help any way we can.
Yep.
Because we want everybody to have a wonderful convention.
Yes.
And I think that's it on my tips. Costumes. I will be there with the 501st, so I'll be doing my New Hope Vader. I'm not sure which time slot I'll have. And I'll be debuting my Severus Snape costume that my wife is at home right now finishing up some details on.
Bless you, Kelly. Bless you.
Yeah.
I love you, Kelly.
We love you, Kelly.
I would not be nearly the cosplayer I am without the hard work and dedication of that loving, wonderful woman.
All right, brown noser.
I plan on, having my Hagrid costume. I've officially brought it out of retirement. I've added a new overcoat that will be debuting at Mississippi Comic Con. It's a genuine leather. It will be very hot. So yes, I will be hydrating pretty regularly.
Please don't put that jacket on until you get inside that
Oh
convention
yeah,
center.
it won't be on until I get inside the air conditioning. I plan on taking my Bro Thor, my
Thorbowski. Yep.
and I haven't quite decided, but I may. I'm teetering. I may bring my Red Guardian.
Okay.
I haven't decided yet. I've been kind of iffy on after the Ukraine-Russia.
Yeah, and his wearing of the Red Guardian costume in no way signals any support for the Russian state.
And actually, if we broke that down, which that could be a whole episode, Red Guardian, though he was created by communist Russia, he was the Captain America of Russia.
Exactly.
He stood up to the bullies in the KGB just like Cap did.
Yes.
So,
again,
I stick to your facts.
I haven't made that decision yet. I'm still thinking on it, but that is an option I'm considering.
Bear, do you?
So Saturday, me and the gang are doing the Mystery Inc. gang actually, and I won't tell you who everybody's going to be, but I'm going to be the Great Dane Scooby. So I'm going to be Scooby Doo.
I can see the resemblance.
Yeah, well, I have the whole foam head and the costume and everything, and we're going to have the graham crackers Scooby snacks to be able to pass out to people.
I didn't realize it was made out of foam. That's
and then Sunday we're going Marvel-esque. I think we're doing. I know that one of us is doing She-Hulk. I think Mama Bear is going to do Miss Marvel. We also have. I'm going to be Kingpin. I'm going to be Wilson Fisk. So
you're trying to make me bring a Captain America costume. Is that what you're doing here?
I mean,
well, if you take Captain, I'll take Red Guardian maybe for.
She-Hulk, and I think it's going to be the. I don't know if they're doing lawyer attire, or if they're doing the actual jumpsuit. I think it's lawyer attire though. And then I think we were also going to have a Matt Murdock there as well. So.
All right. I guess I'll bring Cap in case.
We're doing Marvel Sunday. I don't know what all the characters are, but we're doing Marvel Sunday.
It's not like it doesn't take much to get me to put on a Captain America suit, so I'm acting like it's a great inconvenience, but I may actually do a different version.
Okay.
One that I've never done at a con before. We'll see.
Well, you can have my shield and my hammer if you need it.
I think at last count I have 17 shields now, and I've got 2 Mjolnirs, so...
Don't rub it in.
Yeah. Yeah, I think at 15, Kelly told me if I brought another one in the house that I may have to leave the house.
You could just start giving me some of them, and then you can start buying new ones.
Well, my justification is if it's the same... If it's still Cap shield, does it really count as another shield, right?
True.
Yeah.
True.
I started on the shit. I have 3 Red Guardian shields right now.
Yeah, one's right behind me.
Yeah, I got one.
Makes an excellent backdrop.
Yeah.
And then you've got Stormbreaker.
So what are y'all looking forward to most from con?
I'm a big
Other
fan.
than hanging out with us.
No, that's
I'm a big fan of Batman the Animated Series. So Kevin Conroy is going to be there.
Conroy.
And he is Batman to generations
Yeah.
of fans.
I'm as equally excited about Conroy as I am Tara.
Okay.
Tara Strong being there. Not the original Harley Quinn, but, you know, the Harley Quinn I grew up on at least.
I'm excited for Christina Ricci and Kane.
Wednesday Adams.
Yes, and
Kane, the wrestler, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Booker T's
actually-
going to be there too.
I think
He
he
canceled.
canceled.
Did he?
Yeah.
Now, last year, the largest line was for Sting.
Yes,
And I was...
And he actually, he had to cancel his event the next day
Yeah.
because
He
decided
stayed
to
late.
stay.
Yeah.
Yeah, super nice guy. I didn't actually get the
I
chance to
didn't
meet
get a
him.
chance to meet him
He's a
either.
great
But
guy.
One of my good friends, Carl, just told me he was so spectacular and it's very personable. Spent plenty of time with the guests, and that's awesome.
You know, Michael Rooker's like that too.
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
We
met him at
met him
Pensacon.
at Pensacon. Yeah. One thing before we close out, I want to give you an opportunity to talk about some really exciting event that's coming up in July that may involve a particular Harry Potter cosplayer.
So, our next event after Mississippi Comic Con, which I do want to bring this up too, the Friday before Comic Con, we are going to be at Dogmud Tavern in Ridgeland, and I hope y'all will join us there for that. We're going to be doing pop-up trivia where we're going to ask general nerd questions to the audience, and if you get it right, you get a free pop. But the problem is, it comes out of the box of mystery, so you don't know what you're getting. So that's really cool. We had a lot of pops donated for that. And
You mean vinyl pops? I'm assuming.
yeah, the Funko Pops. Yeah.
It's just I didn't want any Northerners to think that we were talking about sodas.
No. And also at Dogmut Tavern on July 30th, the day before Harry Potter's birthday, we are doing Harry Potter Day, where we're going to be doing Harry Potter trivia. We're going to have the Triwizard Cup there for the winning team to take a photo with. We're going to have wands and a sorting ceremony. And I know that Kevin said he's thinking about bringing the Hagrid
I will be there
costume up.
as a Hagrid. Yep.
With trying to get you to come up as Snape, so
We'll
I
see.
can do Lupin. You know that I think that'd be easy enough.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, we'll
Or
definitely
Moody,
see.
one of the two.
But by all means, no matter what, come out and you've got to see Kevin. He is amazing as Hagrid,
Oh yeah,
and his personality fits the character so well. I've known Kevin.
we're actually going to
Forever.
also be raffling off that day for the Children's Hospital because everything, every event we do something for the Children's Hospital. We're going to be raffling off tickets for a Wizard chess set and a Golden Snitch clock as well. So
Okay.
if you want a chance to win that, of course, 100% of the proceeds charity. So win-win.
Right. So I think that's going to be about it for this episode. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, share this with your friends. Don't forget to go over and check out the Bear and the Beard podcast. Give them a like and a subscribe.
Yes.
We are on YouTube and and audio versions are available pretty much anywhere you get your podcast. Just search for us and make sure you put that ampersand in there.
Ampersand. The word of the day. This has been So Geeking Cool. I'm Frank,
I'm Kevin.
And I'm the Bear.
and we'll see you guys next time.
Out of here.
So geeking cool.